Wait, are we live, or are we editing?
Live, as live as can be. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. That answers your question. Welcome back to the show. Today we have a very special episode with a dear friend that me and Khalifa have personally met in Israel, someone who is extremely active behind the scene and the front of the scene in regards to the battle of the minorities in the Middle East. I am not going to take too much time by introducing her because I'm going to let her tell us a little bit about herself. But Khalifa, how are you, man?
Not so bad. Not so bad. I had a beautiful rainy day. I was running in the forest, in the woods. Perfect day for me. And a lot of exciting stuff going on, you probably know. And I'm really excited to be here, like always.
How much did you say that you ran? You told me that this week you ran how many kilometers?
No, last month I just did the math because, you know, I'm a shepherd. So 296 kilometers last month.
Wow, man, that's insane. All right,
That's
Ateret, without... It is, I wish. I don't think I even ran 10 kilometers last month. It's snowing here. It's snowing here in Germany, and I'm barely having any excuse to walk out of the house. I call it hostile environment. It's minus 10 degrees. To me, that's a hostile environment. There's no reason for a human to be outside, especially someone that came from the desert in these environments outside. Everyone else that tells you otherwise, he's either evil or he's cheating you. You shouldn't be outside in that weather. Ateret, tell us a little bit about yourself so that people can know, and maybe what made you become so active in trying to help minorities like the Druze and the Kurds. I mean, obviously we're very small, but there's not a lot that we can give you, and there's much bigger causes that are probably much more profitable to go and fight for. But you chose to help the voiceless and the small groups like our group, the Druze and the Kurds right now. So who are you and why are you doing what you're doing?
Well, I wish I had decided or could go into a career that was a little bit more profitable as opposed to what I do. But my name is Ateret Shmuel. I'm an international Indigenous and human rights advocate. I'm also a political advisor on international Indigenous, like intertribal diplomatic relations and affairs. I'm also the founder and CEO of an organization called Indigenous Bridges, which creates connections between Indigenous communities all over the world. And, like a career activist. And I ended up in this situation because I'm like violently allergic to injustice. My background generally is in human rights. I worked in human rights for many, many years with many different communities, but I found that the communities that that A, were the most underserved, but also B, were the ones that I related to the most were other Indigenous communities, other communities that had a deep and meaningful relationship to their land, to their ancestral tradition, to their history, their culture, unique cultures, people who really were responsible for the preservation of ancient communities and environmental sustainability. And I just see so many similarities between our nations and Indigenous nations around the world that really became the main focus of my work, especially because prior to that, my area of expertise was actually the Arab-Israeli conflict. And when I really understood just how much of a dead end that was, I kind of focused all of my time and energy and attention onto the issues of Indigenous communities. And so I've worked with different tribal nations all over the world for about 23 years now. And I've developed these very deep, meaningful personal relationships with a lot of the communities that I work with, the Druze, the Kurds, Yazidis, Assyrians, Arameans, Native Americans, Maori, Aboriginal, like all over the world. And one of the things that I genuinely believe is that the fate of all of our nations is interrelated and interconnected, and that we really need to work together for our common good and against our common issues. And when we do that, we're unstoppable, as we've seen. The work that we've done over the last 8 years has actually managed to save thousands of lives. So that really is sort of how I ended up there.
Wow.
Wow.
If you don't mind, I want to circle back just to one thing that you said, that you kind of found that the Arab-Israeli thing was a dead end. Do you mind explaining what you... 1 second. Woo!
Something
All right.
happened to the
Something happened
to the phone of Ateret, but I was listening to her describing herself, and I said, like, at some point in her life, she was standing in a junction, but if she took left, she would be ended like she will end up, from being with the Free Palestine people, because being so much activist and allergic to injustice. So I wanted to ask her about why is there so much Jewish people that are activists for Palestinian causes. You're gonna go to the U.S. and discuss things like that. I've been 2 years ago in the University of Illinois, and I've seen it from I witnessed how so many like Jewish people. I don't know, like, if you can you explain why so many Jewish people and scholars, professors and things like that, are real activists for the Free Palestine movement?
I think it's because of the Epstein list. No, I'm kidding. I tell you what, I think it's the default, because it's so strong in the media and they have such a strong fingerprint, in activism around the world, because they have a lot of budget and funding and you're controlling a lot of media kind of narrative. It's kind of the default fall to, if you just wake up one day and says, okay, I want to be an activist, it's one of the first things that pops into mind. Because every college, every university have this Free Palestine movement and, everything in between. Although we know that there's much bigger crises around the world. Like what's happening in Sudan is way bigger, like 1 million times bigger. What's happening in Syria, in Yemen, what's happening almost every place. Like in Iran right now, way, way bigger. But the chance for you to wake up one day in the morning and says, I want to feel good about myself and I want to do something good with my life, from a narcissistic point of view or from a good point of view, is going to be, okay, what should I go? All right, everybody's talking about Israel controlling the world, the big cabal, oppression, supremacist. Israel is so successful, extremely successful, so it must be the bad guys. So let's go and see who is opposing Israel. All right, look at these guys. They're very poor. They're very miserable. Let me support them. And I think it's just, and then when you do that, you actually get a lot of, I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just thinking out loud. I think you get a lot of like supportive, cute feedback from joining them. And
Yes.
and
It makes you feel good about yourself. Like I'm supposed to be with my people, but I'm so enlightened that I'm going against my people.
And it's cool. And it's cool because if you choose to be right now good and go support an indigenous lost tribe in Ecuador, and there's quite a lot of few of them that might be fighting right now against some oil company that is trying to build a highway through their jungle and destroy their life, there's not a lot of people that are going to clap hands for you. There's not a lot of people that are going to come and tell you, oh, you're such a good justice warrior. It's going to be a very lonely way. You're going to go and fight against big cooperation. Oh, we lost her again.
We lost her again.
You're going to go and fight against big oil cooperation. You're going to not have a lot of people rallying with you to the demonstration because people have other problems right now than to care about some, let's say, tribe in Ecuador. I visited some of these tribes. I literally went and I lived with one, Khalifa, and we went hunting with blowguns to eat food. And They were literally fighting against that. Like the local tribe leaders saw what happened to the nearby tribe that actually was tempted to sell their land just to get a road through and a gas station. And then all the men there became drug addicts and the women, kind of lost the love to nature and connection. So I think it's not cool to be an activist for that, but it's super cool to be an activist for pro-Palestine. Now, Ateret is back.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
All right. Our question to you was...
But now again.
No worries. You can fix it.
Yeah, I think you need to improve your location or something, because probably like maybe it's a poor connection or something.
Yeah, maybe. What is your thoughts? Like, what makes people get so attracted to become pro-Palestinians and not pro-Iranians? Like, the cause is clear. They're suffering as much as like Iranians are suffering way more.
Well, I think the Palestinians, if there's anything that they were extremely good at, is promoting this victimhood narrative. And they did it violently. People don't remember that, but they hijacked planes, they kidnapped people, they did a lot of terrorism. So it drew attention. And once it drew attention, everybody, get attracted to the underdog. They made the world to believe they are the underdog. A lot of people thinking that the Palestinians or the Arabs are the minority here in the Middle East, but the problem is it's not. Like the Jewish and the Israelis are the minorities. Okay, now we are with Ateret. Okay, something is really strange happening with your phone, Ateret, with your connection. I hope it's gonna work this time. Yeah,
Guys, I'm so sorry. I can't hear anything. I keep getting kicked off the.
No, now we can hear you.
Server.
Can you?
I'm not sure what's
Can
going
you hear
on.
us? Ateret, can you hear us?
I can't hear you at all.
Oh, that's a shame.
Hold on. I'm gonna try
That
and
is
close this down
interesting.
and move and get closer to somebody else's Wi-Fi.
No
Alright.
worries.
Log
no
back on
worries.
in a minute, okay?
Okay.
Jerusalem is known for having a lot of challenging Wi-Fi problems. No worries.
Yeah.
I love Jerusalem, man. But I love Jerusalem just enough to stay there for 3-4 days max, and then I need to go. Because Jerusalem is one of the cities, I don't know if you feel the same, that have FOMO on steroids.
FOMO on steroids?
Fear
Like,
of missing out. Yeah.
FOMO of what?
Like when you go to Jerusalem, you feel like every single second there's something big happening that you just don't know about. And I don't suffer from FOMO in general, but in Jerusalem, it like ignites. It's like somewhere in this crazy city right now, there's something super cool or epic that is happening. And I just didn't hear about it. And then when you walk in the street, you see like so many cultures, like groups coming from Africa, from America, from South America, pilgrimage, everybody's coming, and there seems to be like they're having something really cool going on for them.
Great. Well, I go with the antithesis of FOMO. I go by Joby, which is the joy of being in, which means I am in the party that I want to be in. So I never have FOMO, basically. But I really understand what you are talking about. Well, once you walk through Jerusalem, there is something epic. You feel like, oh my God, that is Jerusalem. There's a certain appeal to it. Although most of my life I really hated Jerusalem because the only connection to Jerusalem is what you hear about it. For me, as a northern guy living in north of Israel, is people fighting over stones and cities and things like that. And you say, hey, how many people are going to die for these for these stones, for these old
rocks,
buildings?
yeah.
Listen. As a Yerushalmit, something that is very special and unique about Jerusalem. That like there's nothing like it anywhere else in the world. So you gotta lean in a little bit more to Jerusalem.
We hear the sirens in the back.
Yeah, we can hear her, but we can't see her for some strange reason.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. The whole thing is like acting up.
Let's do some technical work. Are you using your phone or are you using a laptop?
I'm using my phone.
Do you have other applications that are open on your phone, like
Nope.
Facebook, Discord? All right. Are you using like a strong Wi-Fi or is it like a very weak one?
It's probably not the best, but it is what we have.
Have you done like Zoom calls before on this Wi-Fi? Does it work before?
Yeah, all the time. I'm probably just being hacked. I picks off enough really bad guys that it's chances are it's like Turkey or Iran.
Yeah.
Turkey or Iran. Let's try to bring your video though again, if we can. I don't know how we can do that.
I can see me. Do you want me to just log back in?
Yeah. Let me just. I'm gonna remove you from the studio.
Okay. Also, just so you guys know, my kids are going to call me like at any minute now. So.
Oh, okay. And you know, I was telling you about the university that I've been to when the war was going on, raging, and a lot of demonstrations in Ivy League universities. So I went to Illinois University in Urbana-Champaign, Chicago. And the first night I was staying there, I start walking among the demonstrators, and you have this huge lawn, people are sitting, and you have camera team members that actually filming everything that's happening, although not so much is happening. Like, people are sitting and watching a movie on the lawn, and there's some tents and things like that. There's no action happening. So I went there, I asked the media team what is going on, and I said, I don't know, I'm only recording this, I'm only broadcasting what is happening. We are in a major of journalists or things like that. I don't remember what they actually said, but they said, we are only filming, don't talk to us, talk to the PR. So everything was so beautifully coordinated, and the people were watching a movie about Layla Khaled. Layla Khaled is a Palestinian Arab woman terrorist that hijacked planes, and she was telling those students, not physically talking, but in the video, in the film, she was going in this family album and saying how bad things the Jews did to the Palestinians and things like that. And in my mind, you kidnapped, you hijacked planes, you terrorized people. The reason we suffer in airplanes because people like you and those people are glorifying you as being a hero. So the world gone crazy, in my opinion, in those demonstrations. And we have Ateret back with us, and it seems that she has a good connection.
Yes.
Let's see.
I figured about that, guys.
All right, sweet.
Also, whoever wrote that in the comments, I've never lived in LA in my life. I just sound American. That's all.
Wait, you're not American?
No, I am. I grew up in the States, but I'm Israeli.
Okay. So let's jump right now a little bit about the Kurds and what is happening there. Do you have any it's a bloodbath.
It's a bloodbath. It's really upsetting. Happening. Wait, did I lose you guys again? Here? Okay. Basically, so Kurdistan, the Kurdish region, was divided by colonialist forces into four, right? So there you have Kurdistan that's occupied by Turkey, by Syria, by Iraq, and by Iran. And in all four of those regions, the Kurds are not treated well by the countries that occupy them. And so in Rojava, which is Iranian-occupied Kurdistan, they're obviously dealing with the IRGC right now, and have really, per usual, been on the front lines of a lot of the clashes with the IRGC and the Ayatollah. But in Rojava, which is sort of what I think is a matter of critical importance for international security purposes, not to mention a human rights disaster, the Kurds are being completely ethnically cleansed by everyone's favorite terrorist in a suit, al-Jolani, who, once he seized power illegitimately, we all know he began his campaign of ethnic cleansing. He started with the Alawites, and then he went to the Druze, and then he went to the Assyrians and the Christians, and also the Kurds at that time too. And then now he's gone full out trying to completely wipe out the Kurdish community and push them back out of Rojava, which was one of the main strategic points that the Kurds were their presence was reinforced by the West to be there, because they were the last line of defense when it came to stopping and holding back ISIS, right? So Rojava is incredibly strategically important, not just for the Kurds, but for all of our safety. And the Kurds really, like the world really owe the Kurds a debt of, they've sacrificed thousands of their own lives to protect not only themselves, but the entire world from the absolute genocidal colonialist violence, the heinous brutality, the likes of which a lot of the West, thank God, still doesn't yet understand. Unfortunately, we in the Middle East do. And we've just seen that it looks like basically Trump is trying to sign business deals with Turkey and Jolani, basically ISIS. And as a part of that is sort of turning a blind eye to Jolani's plan to commit genocide against the Kurds. And so,
Let me ask you a question. As an American, I would like to hear what you think about that, because obviously the Kurds are the main ally in Syria to the Americans. You know, they are much more Western. They're West-loving. They love America. They love Israel. They want to have peace. And they're not fanatic. They treat women right. They're much more modernized. How come America all of a sudden decided to say we don't need the Kurds anymore and we're gonna jump ship and join Al-Qaeda and ISIS? Because you see Jolani, I mean, he tries to pretend to be not, but all of his men are wearing ISIS flags.
He's ISIS.
Al-Qaeda. Yeah, I know. He pretends not to be, but everybody under him is. And then what they're doing on the ground is they're going and releasing ISIS prisoners, the first thing they did, and they're going and doing ISIS work, you know, trying to kill in the most horrific way, filming it, praising it, shouting they want to destroy it, like extreme Hamas kind of style Gaza narrative we're hearing in Syria, only louder. How is America kind of perceiving that? Like, what's going on in their head?
So, I mean, I don't feel like I'm American enough these days to really speak to that so much. I can tell you what it looks like from my perspective as somebody who does have sort of like my fingers on the pulse of what's going on in the States and is still in touch with a lot of people in the States, is that there's this, first of all, America, especially under Trump, has not traditionally treated the Kurds very well. Trump abandoned the Kurds to ISIS also last time. And if it wasn't for Israel intervening, the Kurds would have experienced a much more horrific massacre than they did. Now, the fact of the matter is that there's a few things at play right now. One of which is that the West has this really unfortunate hubris that they can't afford to have, which is this naivety and this lack of understanding about the ideology and culture and belief system and ultimate goals of a lot of the people here in the Middle East, North Africa, Asia. And so they keep making the same objectively stupid mistake over and over and over again, which is they believe that if they just throw money at Islamist terrorist organizations, that those Islamist terrorist organizations will cease to be Islamist terror organizations and will somehow see the light and become Western. And that has literally never worked in the history of geopolitics. All it has ever done is resulted in Islamist terrorist organizations that have a lot more money so that they can attack much more effectively. But there's just this inability, like the Western mindset is such that they genuinely believe that, you know, like their God is money, their God is business. And so they believe that if they provide enough like financial incentives to Islamist jihadis, that they will no longer be jihadis. Now that just doesn't work. And unfortunately, the Kurds, who really are not just the strong, like they're ideologically and culturally much more compatible with the West. And well, you know, anybody who believes in life, you know, the Kurds care about life. The Kurds bring light. The Kurds fight Islamism. The Kurds proudly defend themselves and the world from this kind of vile hatred. The Kurds are egalitarian. They are democratic. and they are very loyal. They are good allies. And for America to betray them the way that they did is a very stupid move geopolitically, like really, really dumb, for multitude of reasons, one of which Turkey is not a friend. Jolani is not a friend. There is no reality in which Turkey or Jolani will ever be a legitimate ally or partner with the United States of America. Both of their goals involve destroying the United States, and they're very open about it. It's just that the United States is like, no, you don't really mean that. Look, we have money. We can do business deals together. We're buddies, right? And Turkey and Jolani are like, yeah, until we get our chance to kill you, you know? And so that's part of it. But there's also, I unfortunately, the more that I interact with people in major positions of political leadership and power, the more that I understand that they're not there because they deserve to be in those positions. They're there because they either know people or, you know, they have this weird narcissistic belief in themselves. Hold on one second. I just need to let my kids in. And as such, they genuinely don't have the wherewithal or understanding of the nations that we're dealing with. And so they keep making objectively stupid decisions that only see like one step in front of them, without seeing the whole picture, without even caring about what comes after. And unfortunately, in the world of geopolitics, that results in people dying. And so I think it's really, really critical that we get some people in positions of authority and power politically that are able to actually influence the direction of geopolitics from a place of actually genuinely understanding the intertribal diplomatic relationships, actually understanding the ideology of the communities that we're dealing with, and actually understanding their belief system when it comes to interacting with the West. Hold on one second, I just have to parent for a moment.
I would like to point to you something. Think of the message that the U.S. is delivering by abandoning the Kurds. The U.S. basically saying, we are with you as long as we need you, as long as you are strong. Once you you are weak, then we can throw you away. And I think that every Israeli should look, what I'm trying to say, there's a very smart guy called Naval Ravankat. I don't know if you know him, but he's like
Naval.
a huge investor. You know
Naval
him?
is the name of no, but it's in Hebrew. It means either a villain or a
villain.
harp.
Yeah, but he's
Neville or
like,
Naval.
He's not a villain. He's a very smart guy, and he basically says that, like, if, for example, you are sitting in a restaurant with someone that you don't know really, and you see how he treats someone that he thinks that is a lesser person than himself, like a waiter or the person that whatever that is. And he basically says that the people are consistent, so at some point in time this guy is gonna see you as a lesser man than him, then you're gonna have the same treatment that he treated the other guy. And this way you can see with whom you can do business, with whom you can build a solid relationship. Against the US or the US example, we have the Druze example, where, on October 7, Israel in its weakest points, people here don't really understand, like people outside Israel don't really understand it, but people in Israel felt an existential threat. We were certain or sure that there is even bigger attack is coming, and we all lost our security feel. And the Druze were the only people who had no question about it. We went and we fought, and we even people who weren't supposed to be in the Gaza envelope went and fought together. Basically, as a Druze, this moment put me in a aha moment that led me to see, okay, I need to discover more about the relationship between Druze and Jews, because there's something more profound from the story that I learned about. I just wanted to put it out there that that's a very interesting thing because, you know, at some point of time, we should consider that we as Israel state or as a nation will get treated as the Kurds, and what we are going to do about it. That's the point.
I think I'm trying to differentiate lately, especially after the Epstein list came out. I didn't think it's going to surprise me that much, and that it's going to connect to the Middle East, not in the way that people think it did, but it made me realize that you need to differentiate between Americans and the government in America. And often they're not really representative in one another. And I think when it comes now, if I look at Tom Barak and see that, you know, he is the one pushing for the betrayal of the Kurds, for the oppression of the Druze and of the Christians, and for helping establish this Sharia law dominance, Al-Qaeda style, on behalf of Turkey and Saudi Arabia in Syria. It becomes more and more clear to me by the day that he is the main voice for that. Now, I went and I read a little bit about his history, and it's all public knowledge. Like, you can go to the Department of Justice website, the official website, and you can put the name Tom Barak, and you will see open investigations that were against him. And when you read them, man, it's mind-blowing. One investigation came and said that he was almost jailed because he was considered to be a Saudi Arabian agent who was working for Saudi Arabia and who was trying to basically sell information about the Americans and the Trump administration into Saudi Arabia, and also working on pushing pro-Saudi Arabia narratives into the Trump speeches and etc. So he was almost went to jail for that. Like, he had to put a lot of money to get out of it. Like, he uses Monopoly card of get out of jail kind of tricks because he's a billionaire. And then the conclusion was that he's a highly compromised person. His loyalty seemed to be very questionable. And he have a lot of shady deals where it's not so clear where the money is coming from and what's the motives behind the money. That's like the conclusion that came. Next thing we know is all of a sudden he is strongly on Team Trump's side, giving him lots of money to basically win the election and to survive a lot of lawsuits that are happening around it, like raising more than $100 million that people don't really know where it came from. Now, we know already that he is pro-Saudi Arabia, pro-Turkey, strong. And next thing is he becomes the ambassador for Turkey, and he becomes the representative on behalf of America for Syria. And we know that Saudi Arabia and Turkey have a lot of interest in what's happening there. So tell me if that doesn't sound like someone was building up to bring him to that moment that he can be the key factor, not for America first, but for Turkey first, Saudi Arabia first. And then all of a sudden, and that's where the conspiracy, we're treading right now into the conspiracy forest, guys. So tread carefully, check what I'm saying a few times, but something interesting to hear about. One of the things that I saw in the Epstein list was an email between Tom Barak and Jeffrey Epstein. And it's one of the most sickening, vile emails I actually read there, where they're talking clearly about send me pictures of children, make me smile, and etc. and etc. And don't worry, I got our secrets covered. I'm not going to explain. That's the emails. And then the next thing that you find through the email between the Epstein list is that Turkey was one of the main providers for child trafficking into the Epstein, into America. So all of a sudden you have someone who seems to be a predator, and he seems to be a pedo elephant. You know, in Hebrew we say pil. So pedo elephant, and he is highly interested in promoting Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Muslim ideology rather than America and Western valued Judaic Christians. And he is also operating from Turkey, which is the main provider, of these minors into the Epstein. And he's a great friend of Epstein. He is deeply involved with money in that government, all the way that all of a sudden the missing puzzle piece that I had, Khalifa, which was why the heck is Trump siding with the jihadists in Syria, with ISIS, instead of siding with Israel, with the Kurds, with the Druze, and with the Christians. Everything that Trump did until now, I understood. Even if I didn't agree with, I understood. Invading, going and kidnapping Maduro from Venezuela, I completely understood that. From a term of a move to push away China and Russia, and also take down this drug lord and bring some kind of stability and something that will help his country against his enemies. Even wanting to go and take Greenland, I understand. I'm not saying I support it, but I understand. Hey, listen, Greenland is there. They're doing nothing, just building bobsleds. It's going to fall to the hands of China or Russia. Let it be in the hand of America. Much better. Make us stronger, our enemies weaker. So everything like that, I understand. It's make America great. I can see the logic behind it, even if I don't agree with it. I want to say that again. The only thing that I didn't understand, Khalifa, was why is he helping Al-Qaeda all of a sudden and betraying his friends? But all of a sudden, when you realize, wait a second, Tom Barak was also into the Epstein thing. He might have some dirty laundry about that government, about people that did things, and I don't know what. He have a lot of money from Saudi Arabia that is coming and pushing. They were also involved in the Epstein list. Ibn Suleiman was also mentioned there. And a few people from Qatar even went and visited the island. And we know that in Islam in general, the whole thing of, younger kids being sold for sexual reasons is not considered pedophilia. It's considered, part of the religion. Like the Prophet Muhammad had a 6-year-old daughter, 6-year-old wife, and he
9
had intercourses. No, she started when she was 6, and he had intercourses when she was 9. That's what they say, or at least some hadiths are saying that he only consumed the marriage when she was 9. But either way, we're seeing that all these puzzles are starting to fit for a second, and realize if that is the case, then how the heck would you allow someone so heavily compromised to be the one that is leading your negotiation in the Middle East, and you listen to him, and by default, by proxy, listening to Turkey and to Saudi Arabia and to Qatar more than you listen to Israel. You start listening to Muslims more than you listen to Jews. You start listening to Muslims more than you listen to the Christians in Syria and the Druze and the other minorities that are clearly your allies. That was the missing, puzzle piece that I had. It's a theory. We're treading in theory land right now, conspiracy land, but that's a theory that came to mind, man.
Yeah, well, I'm really curious if Ateret can speak now, because she wanted to say something, and it seemed like a very important thing to say. Ateret, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I have not been up on the Epstein list at all. I know very little about it right now because I've been completely all consumed with what's happening in Iran and Syria for the last month. But when you're bringing this up, there's a piece of it that I think that maybe escapes the public view a lot, which is that Turkey is responsible for human trafficking. And the abduction and trafficking of women and minors of indigenous communities. And actually, in America and Canada, this is something that a lot of people don't know. There's a whole issue of missing and murdered indigenous women and two-spirited people. And a lot of them are end up in sexual slavery. Not all of them. Some of them, unfortunately, end up in other horrible situations. But this has been a real issue for a long time in the indigenous communities in the Americas. And Turkey has been indicated in it for many years. This has not been substantiated outside of the indigenous communities, but within the indigenous communities, Turkey, the PLO, Qatar, Iran, and several other really bad players have very actively targeted the indigenous communities of the United States, which is part of the reason why there's so much disinformation about what's happening here, there, and that they've been sort of some of their youth and their influencers have been manipulated into becoming sort of the voice of Gaza, right? Over the last 2.5 years. They've really been sold and have been made to continue promoting this nonsensical story that Palestinians are somehow the indigenous people of this region, when they're very clearly part of one of the most genocidal colonialist empires in the world to date. And this story it's connected. There's a connection between the influence of Turkey and Turkish propaganda and Palestinian propaganda on the indigenous communities of the Americas and the human trafficking of the indigenous Americans. And that's not just the indigenous Americans. If you look at the shared experience of indigenous communities throughout the world that have had to deal with genocidal Islamist colonialism, whether we're talking Hindus, Druze, Assyrians, Arameans, Copts, Kurds, Yazidis, like one of the big features of this colonialism is sexual and gender-based violence, right? If you look at the Yazidi genocide of 2014, which unfortunately I worked the human rights aspect of, and it was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life, there are still nearly 4,000 Yazidi women and children in sexual slavery. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, they're all, the Ayatollah, they're all involved in this human trafficking.
And Hamas, I just want to remind this for people because today I've seen a video of
And I can't hear Khalifa.
Sorry? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. I think it's something with her mic.
Okay. So today I've seen a
No, I
video
can't hear anybody.
of a guy that is, welcoming his sister that was basically stolen or kidnapped for sex slavery as a small kid. And now he haven't seen her for 9 years, and now she's back to home. And the interesting thing, just a reminder for people, in the middle of the war, in the Gazawan war, the IDF actually released a human Yazidi that was sold as a sex slave to Gaza. Just a reminder how common the phenomena is, and to bring a woman to the Gaza Strip, which is one of the most sieged places on earth, just gives you an example or a glimpse of what happens to those poor women, and it is heartbreaking. The things that we witness and see in the Middle East is things that for the common people, probably for the most of the people that are listening to us, can't really understand or conceive the concept of that. Yesterday on X, I've seen a video. I can't really see anymore snap videos, but it came to my feed, so I asked someone to confirm what I thought it was.
What is a snap video?
Beheadings and things like killing or extreme violence porn. That's a snap videos. And basically on a pickup truck, those Sunni Islamists tied a 13, 14 years old boy and beheaded him. Things like that you can't really understand under the shouts of Allahu Akbar. I know, on my platform, I used to say, I'm not really convinced that the war between Israel and other community, like with the Arabs surrounding us, is a religious war. But now I'm starting to change my opinion about that. I was always trying to convey or think that, conjecture that it is a political war. But today,
you think it's not religious?
I used to think so. I used to think that, it's a
I am
political,
100% sure it's religious.
No. Let me explain. What I'm trying to say, like Hamas, its aims are political. It's not Islamist or Muslim per se. But the thing that makes it a religious war is the modest or the quiet majority that doesn't go and say, this is not Islam. I only hear Allahu Akbar in those videos, that they are related to terror or killing or violence or things like that. But I never seen, a demonstration for the modest Muslims saying, hey, this is not Islam. We are Muslims. We think the Druze should live, the Yazidis should live, the Christians should live. And in my opinion, this is actually what makes it a religious war. Like, if you wanna convince us that it's not a religious war, then people from this religion should come and fight the extremists, because they so-called doing bad name for the community, for the Muslims.
Ateret, are you back with us? Yep. So
we lost her again.
we lost her.
that,
We need to do that episode again.
she is the guest that's saying the most interesting stuff, but with the most horrible technical issues. So we need to bring her again sometime.
No, definitely. Ateret, are you back?
Yes, I am.
All right.
What kept happening is I kept losing your audio, so I couldn't hear what you guys were saying.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. The technical issues are so awful.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You came to the most chilled channel out there, so don't worry about it. Everything that you've done, we've done like 100 times more.
If there's anything
mistakes
that we the Druze are very famous is hospitality. So feel comfortable. You are in home. It happens in the best families, so it's okay.
You know what, guys? I've noticed something very interesting. Bibi Netanyahu just posted on his X account yesterday a video of Druze in Syria holding a picture of Bibi, an Israeli flag, and he made a comment, a post, saying Israel is still standing behind its promise to protect the Druze. Here, let me read it for you. And Bibi doesn't just do things just like that. He thinks very carefully. He's a very strategic man. He chooses when to say something and not. The support shown by the Druze in Syria is deeply appreciated. Israel stands with the Druze community and will continue to do so. So he made this post. That's what he made there. And it came right after, the exposure of Tom Barak being part of the child trafficking kind of scam with Turkey and the US, and also with what he did, the betrayal over the Kurds. So I think it's not a coincidence, because I feel like the Druze are shaking right now in Syria because they saw. Yes, Ateret.
So can I also mention that there's something that a lot of people don't know about and really need to know about, which is that Turkey has actually launched a massive disinformation campaign specifically aimed at the Kurds, trying to convince the Kurds that it was Israel who sold them out to ISIS and not the United States. And unfortunately, it spread really far and wide because Israel had no idea that this happened, because clearly Israel did not sell out the Kurds, because Israel is not stupid and understands that if, God forbid, our friends and allies in the Kurds in Syria are killed, that ISIS is coming straight for us. We're their goal, So like but there was this massive, like well-funded, multi-pronged disinformation campaign that Turkey launched, knowing that everybody's focus was on Iran. And I think that this whole like Epstein file thing is really interesting to me, because it goes to show that there's like a lot more interaction between these powers than I think is just on like a geopolitical level. And that it's much darker than we think. Now, we also know that over the last 15, 20, 30 years, maybe even more than that, that there has been a slow infiltration and hijacking and now controlling of all of the Western world systems of distributing and processing information, media, social media, news, even Wikipedia, academia, all of Hollywood, all of these major ways that human beings receive and process information in the world have been taken over by Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Russia, China and Iran. And basically, that's one of the reasons why there's so little information going out into the Western world about what's happening to the indigenous peoples of this community, of this region. Not even the indigenous peoples, but like all of the geopolitical happenings that are happening out here. The whitewashing of Islamist crimes against humanity, the portrayal of Islamist terrorists and child rapists and murderers and kidnappers as the real victims of any of these conflicts is a very intentional move to manipulate the perception of the West. This is an intentional move to try and win over the emotions and the minds of the Western world, so that they colonize their minds before they actively colonize their lands, because these countries know that they don't stand a chance against something like the American militarily. Like if they were to go head to head in a war, they would lose. But it's much easier and it's much more effective in terms of preserving your time, energy, and resources and money if you do the soft power colonialism, which is to take over from within. And that's exactly what's happening. It's also in the political system in the United States. We saw Mamdani get elected now, who's a Muslim Brotherhood plant. Ilhan Omar, whose father is a literal war criminal. He committed genocide. They escaped to the United States because they weren't escaping persecution. They were escaping or the world. Can you hear me? It looks like it cut out.
Yeah, we can still hear.
So the hijacking of all of these information systems is very much a part of that.
Just to tell about the Wikipedia that you mentioned, I don't know if you know, but since October 7th, for the longest time, no matter what you were looking at in Wikipedia in Arabic, you will have the Palestinian flag and the Palestinian kufiya around the logo of Wikipedia with a big red remark saying that we are standing against the genocide of the Palestinian people. Like even if you were looking, I don't know, any name of Omar Sharif in Wikipedia, you will find some connection to the Palestine, like the brainwashing in such scale that you can't even conceive it. It's amazing.
It's a clear hostile takeover. I think if you want to take an analogy of the Matrix, if someone takes the red pill or the blue pill, once you wake up, that's when you start seeing this. Because you start seeing like, how the heck is like everybody so obsessed with Palestine? There's only 2 million there, and they're the ones actually that are the criminals. So why is everybody like falling for that? Why is no one talking about Iran, the Kurds, the Syria, the Druze, the Muslims that are being killed by Muslims all around the world, stuff that are happening in Africa, in Asia, like so many much bigger crises that are happening, and Wikipedia, Hollywood is not even talking about it. So once you take the right pill, the blue pill, I think, or I don't know which pill was that, but once you take the right pill, you're like, now I see. But you mentioned Hollywood. You mentioned before like the U.S. and Hollywood and Palestine. The only thing that I feel that is connecting Hollywood with the Islamist world is pedophilia. That's like the common ground that they find with one another. And it's quite big in Hollywood, apparently, and it's quite big in the Islamist world. So
it absolutely is. And also you have to understand that the Palestinian cause is basically the spearhead of Islamist colonialism in the world. The Palestinian cause is really the Trojan horse with which Islamist colonialism is entering the West. And it's really interesting because people really are starting to wake up a little bit, especially with what happened. There's a lot of us little tribes here, right? Jews are 15 million worldwide, and that includes like newborn babies and like elderly people in hospice care. Not every Jew even knows our own story or anything about being Jewish, let alone understands what's happening to our people globally, and can stand up against that. Druze, it's like between 1 and 2 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yazidis is the same. We have all these little tribal groups but then you have the larger tribal groups. You have, like the Islamist attacks against Hindus, right? That's 1.2 billion people in the world, right? People started kind of waking up after the attack in Kashmir and the genocides in Bangladesh recently. Not everybody, but members of those communities, because those communities also experienced the same sort of like Islamist colonialist lies about what was happening in Gaza. You have people who did believe that there's a genocide in Gaza, even though very obviously the Palestinians attacked Israel on October 7th and commit the worst genocide against Jews since the Holocaust. And that this war in Gaza, from a factual perspective, from a real data perspective, has the lowest civilian to combatant casualty ratio in the history of warfare, right? Generally in situations of urban warfare, especially, I think the ratio is 10 civilians to 1 combatant. In this case, if we take Hamas's own inflated numbers, which we shouldn't because they're not real and they're made to look like there's a lot more death, even if we take Hamas's own numbers, it's less than 1 civilian to 1 combatant. That's never been seen in the history of warfare. This will be studied in years to come when we talk about like how to preserve civilian lives. But after the Hindus in Bangladesh and India and Kashmir started seeing the way that they were being portrayed after they were attacked by Islamists, they were like, wait a second. Wait, what? Because they experienced the exact same propaganda and disinformation campaigns that were being leveraged against Israelis and Jews throughout the world. They were being called genocidal colonialists. They were being called illegal occupiers. They were being accused of pinkwashing and whitewashing and greenwashing and whatever washing whenever they talked about their own accomplishments or their own, the ways that their society was succeeding. And when it came to, the Druze also experienced the same disinformation campaigns. It was claimed instead of it being a coordinated attack by Islamists against the Druze minority, it was seen as, tribal skirmishes, like it's just these tribes that are fighting because they can't, like it was this framework that made it seem like it was something that it wasn't, that there was an ownership of the violence against the Druze, that they had provoked it against themselves in a way that you guys certainly did not. And that was intentional. And the same happened against the Alawites. The same happened against the Assyrians. The same is happening against the Christian communities throughout the Middle East and Africa. And slowly, people are starting to actually wake up. It always starts with the Jews, but it never ends with the Jews. All of us are experiencing the exact same thing. All of us are experiencing the exact same genocidal colonialist violence, sexual violence, human trafficking, slavery, hostage taking, torturing, and also the exact same disinformation campaigns. And now, the Kurds make up, I believe, roughly 60 million in the Middle East. And then there's the Kurdish diaspora, which is not. And the Persians, in Iran alone, there's 92 million Iranians. Like the Persian diaspora community is also enormous. The more that the Islamists are attacking the indigenous peoples of this region, now that we are all connected via the internet and we all have social media and all of this, people are slowly starting to wake up and be like, wait, what's happening? And we're seeing that especially now with what's going on in Iran. Because if you look at the demonstrations in support of the Iranian people, you see the Iranian flags, the flags of the host countries that they're in, and you see the Israeli flags. If you look at the pro-regime demonstrations, you see the pro-regime flags, and you see the PLO flags, the Palestinian flags.
Yeah, you see them clearly. They showed their face. They showed their face as clear as as daylight, who they stand with. They aligned themselves from the beginning with the most wicked, most vile regimes and organizations on the face of this planet, with Hamas, with Hezbollah, with IRCG. I mean, we're seeing right now there's no more excuses. You can't come and say, yeah, you know what, they're resisting. They didn't mean to kill civilians. They meant to kill the IDF, but casualties of war happen. You need to understand Hamas is a resistance that came because, well, okay, you keep saying that. You live far away. You want to believe that nonsense. Good for you. But how can you explain in Iran? There's no, what do you mean resistance? They're like literally butchering women and children in the streets because they want to not wear a hijab and want to have internet, want to have a Facebook account. That's why they're killing them. And then in Europe, they're going, yeah, we support them. All right. So we know right now, who do you support? It's very clear. What do you support? It's not anymore supporting freedom fighters. You are literally supporting dictatorship, totalitarian, religious, fanatic Muslim regimes. That's what you're supporting. Okay, now we know. Just say it clearly.
Right. But they also are working on building this narrative, building this twisted portrayal of what's happening in Iran right now. The IRGC, I mean, we have to remember that the IRGC and the Islamic Republic of Iran helped train Hamas prior to the October 7th massacre. They also funded it. And they trained them not only to slaughter innocent civilians, but they also trained them on how to manage disinformation campaigns. They trained them
to slaughter their own people.
Yeah. But they trained Hamas in what to tell the outside world, to claim that there was a genocide, to claim that they were experiencing genocide when they commit genocide, that they were the ones that were being the real victims. It's this very like gaslighting, narcissistic, abusive Darvo language. And so we're watching right now, we have information from within Iran itself that the Ayatollah of Iran that is hoarding women and children's bodies that they have killed because they are about to launch a massive disinformation campaign aimed at the West and the West's geopolitical illiteracy and ignorance, to make it seem like if and when the US actually does strike, which please God will be soon, that they're going to then produce these bodies of these women and children that the IRGC, Ayatollah, and foreign Islamist militants actually did murder, and try to make it seem like these were the innocent victims of the US or Israel.
Ateret, I wanna say something about what you just said. Don't you think it's just terribly sad that because of woke leftist activists in the West, radical Islamists are finding more excuses of how to be even more cruel towards the innocent because they know they have a crowd? I mean, why would Iran go and slaughter so many people when they cut down the internet and collect their bodies and keep them if they didn't know that once it's needed, they will just release these bodies images that they just slaughtered and they will blame America, and then they know they can count on CNN and on woke left media and woke universities and activists to pressure the good people so they stop trying to save the other good people who are the victims so it can save the bad people. Like, they literally know they can count on the West, especially on the left. How sad is that? We don't hear you, Khalifa.
It's horrible.
I blame Israel on that, because to add to what you just said, Sinwar, in his writings that was published, part of the plan of beating Israel in a very hard strike on October 7, he was counting on the national or international media to attack Israel so fiercely to make it stop the response to the attack. They actually built on it. But I have a question for Ateret. Ateret, let's put it down to earth, to Syria, just to make it clear for people. Syria, it's clear for us, nobody needs to explain for us that it is an ISIS state. Like, if it used to be an ISIS state and now it's on the trajectory of not going to be a ISIS state, it's too late. Like, we are seeing what their soldiers are being taught. They are shouting, Khaybar, Khaybar, ya Yahud, Jayshu Muhammad, Bada'a Yahud. They are shouting, Jews, Jews. The army of Muhammad started to return back. And releasing the thousands of Islamists, of ISIS fighters, that is clearly something that you can't really fix in a second. So please explain, like you mentioned Qatar, you mentioned Saudi Arabia, you mentioned Turkey. What is happening in Syria? What are the interests of those countries? Like, if I take Qatar, for example, it's not a very stable, regime, because it's a small family controlling a huge amount of wealth, with being a minority. There are almost 200,000 Qatarians, or over 1.5 million of foreign workers in a very small state. So what is the interest of Qatar, for example, to cultivate this ISIS state? What is the plan? Who is building this, and for what reason?
So I want to also, before I touch that, I want to speak a little bit to what Mansour just said, because it's related as well. So I don't know how much of my background you guys actually know, but I was an Antifa organizer. I was a far woke leftist. I was on the vanguard of that. That was the world that I came from and came out of, which is part of the reason why I understand it so well.
Wow.
Wow, that exactly proves what I just said when you
Khalifa
were
said
down.
that, yeah.
Wow,
when
amazing.
when you didn't hear him, he was saying that you stood on the crossroad. If you turn right, will be pro-Israel, pro-West, turn left, you'll be pro-Palestine, completely woke.
Wow, spot on.
So,
wow.
So I can tell you, as somebody who came from that world, that it's a complete clash of cultures, right? The Western leftists genuinely believe that they are the vanguard of like humanity and goodness in the world, that they see themselves as the most righteous, the most elite, the most educated, the most like knowing, and therefore infallible. Like you can't, nobody knows more than them. They're better than everybody, you know, they can't be tricked. And who, you know, yeah, that it happened to everybody else, but we're smarter than everyone like that. So, you know, like it happened to us. And it's precisely this left Islamist alliance that is responsible for the destruction of what was, you know, Iran, for the reinstatement of for the Ayatollah taking over Iran and the horrific oppression of the Iranian people. It was the college activists, it was the leftist activists, the extremists that partnered with the Islamists to bring the Ayatollah in because they were outraged over their experience of injustice with the Shah. And I'm not going to talk to whether or not that was legitimate or not. I'm going to, you know, sidestep that entirely. But their experience of the injustice under the Shah made them partner with Islamists because the Islamists understood that they could prey on the left, the woke left's ego and naivety, and also good intentions, right? Like part of being a leftist means that, you know, you're a bleeding heart liberal. You care about the lived experience of other people. And so you have to go out because you're the good guy and you're advocating on behalf of the little guys who are, you know, the underdogs. And so it's precisely this left Islamist alliance that I personally think is the biggest danger that the world faces to this day. It is this alliance that has hijacked the media, right? Like when we talk about the takeover of the media and social media and Hollywood and all of that, if you think about the people that I listed, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iran, Russia, and China. Russia and China are the leftist piece of this left Islamist alliance. It is also the voting bloc in the UN that prevents any real humanitarian work from being done. It is also the voting bloc in the UN that allows for some of the biggest human rights atrocity committers to be put in positions of power and authority, so that they can continue to commit these atrocities without having to pay the consequences for it. And so part of what we're seeing in Syria, to pivot back to your question, is that there is an interest, right, between this leftist and Islamist alliance. The Islamists obviously want to bring the global caliphate, right? That is the goal. The goal is for Islam to be all over the world. The goal is for everyone to be under Muslim rule. And so they believe that ISIS and all of the Islamist radicals that are in Jolani's army are part of bringing back this wonderful global caliphate. You know, Turkey is trying to step up and bring back the Ottoman Empire, you know, and Qatar has been the main piggy bank for a lot of this war, a lot of this violence, a lot of the disinformation campaigns. Qatar has been funding the leftist demonstrations throughout the West. Qatar has been funding the disinformation in American and British and European and Canadian academia. Qatar is a part of this. And whereas the Sunni and the Shia may not agree when it comes down to it, they're on the same side when it comes to taking down everybody else. So Syria really is a main player in that. And mark my words, what happens in Syria and also what happens in Iran right now is going to affect the entire world for generations to come.
Yeah, Syria is definitely a playground, a sandbox right now for the Muslim expansion over the world. It's a little example what they want to do in Syria is they want to dominate Syria. They want to take it away from the hands of the Shia now to the hands of the Sunnah. Then they want to exterminate anyone that is not Sunnah. You see, it's like having a mobile app role play game where you can kind of play the game that you'd want to play in your life. And that's what these Muslim countries around the world are doing. They see like, okay, let's play real Islam in Syria. Kill everyone that is not Muslim. Enslave anyone that the Muslims allow not to kill, like the people of the book, and put extreme taxation on them and humiliating rules, and basically make that whole land Muslim, and then use it as a base to go and invade Israel, take back Jerusalem, and then the rest of the world. So for them, this is a sandbox of how Islam should be, but they don't want to try it in their own country because they know whenever you play proper Islam, things go really bad, really bad. So they don't want to play that in Turkey. They don't want to play that, in Qatar and Dubai and Saudi Arabia. They don't want to play that games there. But Syria is they tried to play that in Palestine, but now Israel went and basically flattened Gaza. So they can't play that game there anymore. So Syria is the next Gaza. It's the next Islamic sandbox experiment. And just like you said, whatever is happening there will definitely affect the world 100%. At least in Gaza, the world was protected from the Gazans because Israel kind of blocked them from going outside and doing what they want to do everywhere else. And Egypt was even more fierce and crazy in blocking them.
Maybe we should have let the world understand what we're dealing with a little bit more.
It's probably, undoubtedly it's going to happen now, not because we wanted to, but just because they didn't help and support and they actually hated it for us. But now a lot of them were so stupid to actually bring Gazans into Europe. Like, yeah, we're bringing them. All right, good luck. Canada, Australia did that as well. So I think undoubtedly they're starting to deal with that right now. They're starting to have, look at the Christmas markets. Come on. You go to a Christmas market now, you're scared shit of your life because you feel like if you don't have anti-barricade, like anti-tank World War II Normandy barricades around the Christmas market, you don't feel safe anymore. Not because the Jews are going to come in right now and sell you bagels, not because the Druze are going to come right now and give you pita with za'atar and labani. It's because the Muslims are going to come right now and drive a truck inside shouting Allahu Akbar and Takbir and basically kill your children. So I feel like they are getting a taste now of what we've been warning them for a long time, and they will have two options: either resist and pay the price or submit and pay even a heavier price. So they're going to have to choose. There's no third option. No third option.
This is absolutely true. And one of my biggest fears is that the West will wake up too late. That I think that the fall of Europe has much bigger impact globally than people really realize. Because also a lot of these Islamists, first of all, the West has never been willing to listen to the voices of those of us who have actually experienced life with Islamist terrorism. And in fact, we've all been actively silenced. Whenever we speak about our lived experience, we're accused of Islamophobia, which is ridiculous because when we're talking about our lived experience of like genocide, sexual slavery, gender-based violence, ethnic cleansing, dhimmitude, my Iraqi family lived as dhimmis under the Iraqi government, and around the world right now, when we're seeing, the Iranians stand up for themselves and fight and protest in the streets, they're being accused of Islamophobia. Now, phobia is an irrational fear. And our fear of what we've actually experienced for 1,500 years is not irrational at all. It is completely rational. It is completely rational to be afraid of being raped and murdered. It is completely rational to be afraid of being enslaved by people who say that they want to rape, murder, and enslave you. There is nothing irrational about that at all. It does. Fear and acknowledging a real lived danger and present existential danger does not mean hatred. It's not, it doesn't necessarily translate to a hatred of Muslims, but that language is actually in and of itself, this concept of Islamophobia was actually invented by none other than the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah. It was Iran. Iran started this campaign of talking of anytime anyone criticized them, they would turn it around because they understand the Western psyche enough to understand that Westerners are so consumed with this sort of like politicized like identity politic and wanting to be a good person. And now in the West, that racism and bigotry are considered like the worst things that you can be, as sort of like a backlash to the racism and bigotry that they were so proud of for so long. They understand that they can weaponize terms like Islamophobia to further silence people that they're actively trying to colonize, right? So whenever we speak about our lived experience, when you hear Hindus talking about their experience under Arab colonialism and the attacks against Hindu communities and the rapes of Hindu women and the kidnapping of Hindu children, they're accused of Islamophobia. When you hear Yazidis talk about what they experienced under, they're accused of Islamophobia. When you hear Somalian women talk about their experience of female genital mutilation, Islamophobia. When you hear Iranians talking about their experience of living under the IRGC and the Ayatollah, they're accused of Islamophobia. When you hear Kurds talking about their experience, they're accused of Islamophobia. And it's not a phobia at all. It is a rational and logical fear. And we are warning the West, who is their current target. And it's really mind-blowing that the West doesn't understand how they're being manipulated, or that because they don't think that they can be manipulated. It's this hubris. It's this arrogance that they have that they're not even aware of.
Yeah, they can't even imagine, that all those refugees coming to Germany, for example, see themselves as superior to the Germans themselves. They can't even imagine that concept, I guess. But I want to ask you something, Ateret. You are portraying a very dark image here, and it seems that we are here in a dire situation, basically. So how we can deal with it? Why? We have a very modest podcast or audience speaking here. Everybody have this feeling, probably people that following us, that it is like gloom and doom, although we are very happy and very cheerful people. What we can do about it? Why the politicians, even here in Israel, they don't really, fighting this fight? You just said that you came from a meeting with politicians, so please give us behind the scenes of what is happening, what we can do about it.
So I will tell you from my perspective, I know it does sound, it's my world, so I forget how dark and scary it sounds to other people because it's just so much of what I deal with all the time. And yet there is a real existential threat that we are all facing, not just those of us in the Middle East, but also those in the West. However, the reason that I do what I do, and the reason that I run an international Indigenous rights organization that creates connections between Indigenous communities all over the world, is because I genuinely believe that the future depends on intertribal diplomatic relations and partnerships. I genuinely believe that if we stop trying to have people relate on like a state to state level, and instead we focus on creating relationships between tribal nations, like the Druze and the Kurds, the Assyrians, the Armenians, the Jews, the Copts, the Yazidi, like all of us are these ancient, beautiful, wonderful, like magnificent communities that have such beauty, such light, such history, such a deep connection to our land, such a deep love of our nation, our history, our culture, our land, our traditions, that when we come together and we're able to sort of shift the paradigm a bit, and instead of trying to like be like this monoculture, you know, the way that colonialism works, by being like, okay, now you're all part of the Arab Empire, now you're all part of, you know, the Assyrian Empire or whatever, or like the Christian Empire. If we're able to change that and be like, I, as an Indigenous person from an ancient Indigenous community, recognize you not as the same as me, but as different, and that you in your difference is beautiful, that I as a Jew recognize you as a Druze, and respect and love and honor your country, your community, your nation, your traditions. We don't have to be the same, but we share an interest. We share you know, aspirations for the future. We share a common enemy. And if we can learn about each other and actually create connections and bridges between one another's communities, if our nations really learn about each other and develop long-lasting bonds of friendship, even if the like paper mache, you know, like leadership of whatever puppet state countries exist that have been arbitrarily carved up by colonialism over the last few hundred years, even if those government collapses, our nations, the relationship between our peoples will remain. You understand? That is the future. That is what we need to be doing. That is what we've been working on. That's what Indigenous Bridges, my organization, has been working on for many years. And it is precisely these relationships that have led to you know, the saving of countless thousands of people, you know, just because of the position that we were in, because of our work. Actually, speaking of the Kurds, our work with the Kurds, we were in a unique position when the earthquake hit 3 years ago, where we were working with the Kurdish communities on the ground. And Israel was one of the first responders to the earthquake. You know, like we sent people out, and Turkey tried to use that earthquake to commit genocide. But because Israel was in direct communication, like I helped coordinate the search and rescue teams because of my relationship with the Kurds. And as such, we were actually able to rescue the people that Turkey was trying to have die because of this natural disaster. You know, this is what will protect our people, is if we can join forces, not by becoming one single thing, but by understanding the beauty in one another and supporting one another. We are much stronger. We are much more powerful. We have much deeper roots. We are not, you know, this like predatory, parasitic colonialism. We can take it and we can fix it. We are stronger than them.
Sweet. You know, there is one more thing that I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned Antifa. So for those who don't know, Antifa is anti-fascist. So if you can say, like, for a few words, you know, anti-fascist, why it's so bad? You know, are you pro-fascist now? What is it like? Why Antifa is a bad thing to begin with?
Antifa is not a bad thing. It's been hijacked. I've met really interesting Antifas here in Germany. But yeah, please tell us, Ateret.
Ateret is muted. Her mic
So
is
my
muted.
first encounter with Antifa here in Germany, I was interviewed to a newspaper, and here we go.
Yeah. I think you're too beautiful for the camera. This is why it's keeping blocking out. I can keep it all day long. Yeah. Did you hear my question?
But did you
Because,
see me blush?
yeah, you know, you're putting so much chen and so much intelligence to the conversation, so the camera is overwhelmed.
It's too much for the cameraman. Too much for the cameraman.
So I was asking that you mentioned Antifa, and for the people, Antifa means anti-fascist. So are you now pro-fascist? Why Antifa is a bad thing to begin with?
No. So Antifa, it's funny because there's such a people just don't understand what Antifa is. A lot of people think it's an organization, and it's not. It's a movement. And it's anti-fascist action. It's the anti-fascist movement. And I have remained anti-fascist. The problem is that in addition to the media, social media, and information systems that have been hijacked by Islamists, so have the social justice movements, which is why we see what we see with the UN, with Amnesty International, with Human Rights Watch, with all of these organizations that I once worked with. And they've all been infiltrated and overrun with Islamists. And the same is true, unfortunately, for the social justice movements. Now, how much of that are, a lot of it is useful idiots. A lot of it is people who genuinely don't know any better, but are swept up by these like emotional arguments and like wanting to be a good person in the world and wanting to what's called virtue signal, like seem like a good person in the world. And so there are some bad actors controlling the narrative, and then you have a lot of people who just don't know better, but like don't want to step out of line. They want to like toe the party line and like be a part of it. So I have remained staunchly anti-fascist. Like the problem is that Antifa and a lot of the Antifa organizers have become fascist. Yeah. They've taken on, it's just fa. And we joke about this all the time because there's a whole group of us that used to organize together that like in different places that like have the shared experience, the shared background of like watching in horror as the communities that we were a part of were sort of turned this weird corner and became exactly the things that we were all fighting against. And like many of them were completely unaware of it. And so I don't think, like, I'll give you an example. I was kicked out of a leftist online space a while back because it was a progressive leftist space, and they required that anybody answering a question had to state their gender identity, their race, their ethnicity, their pronouns, and something else, so that they could rate the value of what they had to contribute to the conversation. And I was like, listen, aren't we not supposed to be attributing value to a person based on their race, ethnicity, gender, or, skin color? Isn't that like the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing? And so they promptly called me a fascist and kicked me out. And the thing is I think that anybody with a shred of common sense understands that I was pointing out the fact that they were being fascist, and that that this is the part of what we're seeing within leftist, especially extreme leftist circles, is that they live in this echo chamber of like, patting themselves and each other on the back about what great people they are. And whoever dares to sort of step out of line is it's like this very high critical, like there's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of judgment, and there's a lot of stakes involved, in these environments, so that if you dare to have your own thoughts or you dare to ask things, you are not only ostracized, but they make an example of you. You're canceled. They come after you and they try to destroy you, and that's very much what the fascists did. That the like forcing people out, believing that people should be re-educated by force, believing that you should kill people who don't agree with you, silencing any dissent. That is fascism.
I would love to double down on this question, because what you're saying is extremely interesting. Because for me, watching from the side, I could see that there are a lot of titles like Black Lives Matters, Antifa, Occupy Wall Street. Even here in Israel, it always seems like Aidai Midei Isav Kol Kol Yaakov, like the appearance is something, but the underneath, power it's the same. It's almost the same. So how much of what you know about Antifa is basically even here in Israel? Like for me, and now after all our hostages are back, even the movement to get back the hostages, of bringing them now, or things like that, the energy of it seems similar, isn't it? Or like you are describing a real deep infiltration to those organizations or those movements. So how much of this is also applied here in Israel? This is the question.
So I do know for a fact that a lot of the far leftist organizations and publications it looks like.
Yeah. Let's see. Try to say something just to make sure that you're still with us.
She probably
she's gonna come. The Antifa is trying to intercept her. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be funny if I was being silenced?
Not in our watch. You will never be
like
silenced
just about
at
to spill the tea.
Not in our channel.
Just about to spill the tea, and I got kicked out. So I do know, as a matter of absolute fact, that some of the far leftist publications and organizations in Israel are also funded by outside sources. Things like Breaking the Silence, B'Tselem, Haaretz, other like plus 927 magazine. All of those people are receiving a lot of funding from either anti-Semitic European organizations or Qatari funding. Sometimes it's Qatari funding that's been funneled through, like laundered through another organization, but they are being paid to try and sow discord and discontent within Israeli society. And I think, like, thank God, I think that most Israelis have had enough direct experience. Oh yeah, actually, so Germany, I just saw that comment. I haven't been able to see most of the comments because they're too small. But
yeah, Germany have a very special Antifa.
Yeah, especially in Berlin. This is the one Antifa group that I still think are doing really, really, really important work.
I would say even more in Leipzig, even
really?
more than in Berlin. Yeah. Here, first time I met them, I was interviewed to a newspaper, and they told me, something about Antifa, and I've been seeing a lot of graffitis of Antifa everywhere here. And I told them, like, oh my God, we have these idiots here now, just like the Black Lives Matter. And he said, no, they're different. And then I went one day to a demonstration, and they are die-hard, hardcore, pro-Israel and anti-fascist, like for real though. They go to pro-Palestine demonstration and they give them shit. They go and stand with the Iranians, with the Kurds, with the Druze. They're really standing brave to the name of being anti-fascist. And I've never seen, like, they gave me hope for the, call it the anarchist left kind of movements, because they're very much off the grid left. They don't like social media. They don't like the government to have control or power over them. They live a lot of time like off the grid, but they're serious. And that's when I realized, so that's how Antifa should look like.
Yeah. So
it's been kidnapped and hijacked, just like you said, by the cuckoos.
Yeah. So that is my sort of crew. And the fact of the matter is that I think, like, especially in Western politics, and I can speak mostly, I don't feel comfortable speaking about all Western politics because I don't feel like I know enough about everyone, but I can definitely say specifically about American politics, like both the left and the right have like moved, like the goalposts of both the left and the right have moved very extremely, so that they're sort of like almost in the same place. And so a lot of those of us that used to feel very at home on the left, even the far left, have found ourselves not there anymore. We're now like either in the center or even on the right, which is very bizarre for a lot of people, because we're talking about the old lefts, like the vanguard of the old left, like the real progressives, the real liberals. My ethics and my politics have not changed at all. Like I still believe in all of the same things that I believe. I mean, I'm a career activist, and I run an indigenous rights organization. That used to be the work of the left. Like that used to be what the left stood for. Now we're seeing that the left has changed. And I think that for those of us who care more about like tachlis reality and truth, and less about being affiliated or like our emotional connection to like the name of a political party. We've all found ourselves to be politically homeless. You know, like this is a real, like pretty much any smart, thoughtful person in the West who consumes a lot of information or who has access to different cultures and countries and communities has found ourselves in the exact same situation, which is that we can't align ourselves with either the far right, the right or the left so much because none of them have our interests in mind.
Exactly. And by the way, Shoshana Shauna reminded us about the Hobbit shoes that we started as a joke, me and Khalifa, a long time ago, getting shoes for the Hobbits. So your question is, are German Antifa communists? Also money for the Hobbit shoes. German Antifa, from what I've seen, are not communist. No, they are. Sometimes they are considered extreme here in Germany because some of them revere themselves as anti-Deutsch, which is they're anti-government for Germany. They believe that Germany have committed such horrific crimes in World War II during Nazi Germany that they should never be deserved to have a nation. So they're like kind of anti-government. But in the core idea of the Antifa, they're very much, well, from what I've seen here in Germany, which is an admirable way to practice it, they are not on the side of Russia. And they're actually quite smart to know how to stand and shift the views that they have about life and not be just blinded by hate. Like some of them obviously did not like, let's say, some American policies in the past and didn't like Trump, but now they agreed with some of his policies, so they're actually thankful about them. Or some of them didn't like necessarily Bibi for many things, but they actually saw how he saved the Druze and how at the end of the day he did lead this country to defeat a lot of its enemies. So they are not die-hard blind like you'd see in America when it comes to the right and the left and the woke there. There's like extreme political identity. They're actually quite intelligent people that know to look bigger pictures about the map. And from what I've seen, they're not communists. You know, maybe I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, they have quite strong views, at least the ones I've met, against communism because they've seen how it failed almost everywhere that I went. That's about that question, just to answer that. All right, Khalifa, I think we're coming to an hour and a half.
No, we definitely passed an hour and a half, but it was a very interesting conversation, and I'm really like I still have like a million questions for Ateret to pick her mind, but it will have to wait for another time. A very interesting podcast, very interesting conversation, very interesting guest. I really enjoyed this show, really.
Yeah, we should do another episode with her talking about Antifa, focusing on that. I think that's an interesting topic for people to understand. I see Rob here said GG. I don't know if he meant it that way, but for those of you who don't know, GG is good game. That's the language that you have. Usually I always hear like Serbians, GG, brother, GG. Took me like, what is it, GG? Ah, okay, good game. All right, ladies and gentlemen, may God bless you all. Stay safe. Don't do anything stupid. And we're going to try to give you more and more updates. I am going to the U.S., by the way, in the next few days. I'm going to fly and be in the U.S. for about 2.5 weeks. I have a conference that I'll be doing there. I will still be doing live shows and podcasts from the U.S., only I'm going to be in a different time zone. So Khalifa, we're still on plan. Me and Khalifa have quite a crazy schedule this week for our joint podcast program. We're going to be interviewing, what's his name?
Eyal Dror on Thursday.
Eyal Dror.
Avri Gilad on
Avri
Friday.
Gilad. Yes, Avri Gilad on Friday, Eyal Dror on Thursday. My mom came with the best idea. My mom, after the last episode we did in Arabic with her Jewish friend, had 2 Muslim friends, one from school and one from the city, that contacted her and told her, listen, we saw the episode, we want to go with you on an episode, and we're going to share as Muslims how much we love Israel and how life in Israel is good and treated us fair, to debunk the lies. And then one of these Muslim ladies had cold feet and said, you know what, Medina, I'm scared because I know that I'm going to speak the truth and I'm going to get a lot of hate from the Muslim community, so I'm going to stay quiet. But the other one, listen to this, guys, that's like a joker. She is an Israeli Muslim who is black, who is Bedouin, and she want to go on a show with my mom, who's a Druze religious woman, and they want to bring to the show another friend of them, which is a Jewish, Iraqian, Arabic teacher. And they want to do a show with me and Khalifa where they want to talk, and not talk politics, just talk about how they met each other and how to live the life, which I think is the best way to explain the life, the true life in Israel. So we're going to do an episode with my mom and her two friends. And it looks like every time we do an episode like that, more and more friends in the circle of my mom, which I think are the best ambassadors for Israel, the best. Because they're not politicians, no one is paying them, they're not saying anything to get votes, they're just literally telling you life stories. And Khalifa, remember when my mom said about this Jewish lone soldier that that
amazing story, crazy story.
So here's the story, guys. So, my mom told Khalifa that there was a lonely IDF soldier that one day seemed sad, and my mom invited him to the house and started making food, and he became like a second son to her. And then he had a girlfriend, a Jewish girlfriend, and they both used to come to my mom's house every Friday, and he became like a second son. And one day she saw him super sad. The guy was like sad, his face was down. My mom called him. He actually came to her and says, Khalta Medina, I want to talk to you. I'm sad. My girlfriend broke up with me. So my mom, not politically correct, called the girlfriend, told her, come here, and brought her to the house. Why did you break up with him? He's a lovely guy. And the girl came and told her, because he doesn't want to marry me. He's been holding me. And then my mom turned around to him. Shame on you. What are you holding the lady? Beautiful lady like this. She deserves commitment. And they went together, and now they're getting married. So they invited my mom to the wedding. And now they saw the episode, and they said they want to come on an episode with my mom to tell that story.
Amazing.
Wow.
I love everything about that.
Isn't that a crazy story? Like
Your mom is a legend.
Yeah,
She is a
ended up
legend.
hooking two Israeli Jewish like young people to get married and basically commemorating this wedding, kind of bringing it together. What a beautiful thing.
Well, for like to get to the metaphysical aspect of it just for a second, that's the whole point. Like if I would like to have a title over the whole thing, all the BDS, Antifa, all those movements or ideologies, what they do is actually trying to cut bridges, try to dehumanize Israelis, or human beings, the other fellow human, no matter who he is. And in order to fight that, we need to get bridges. We need to get more connections, true connections between one and another. And a simple thing like ordering someone for a meal would open such a door that it's amazing, and it proves the case. And this is exactly what we should do with the Kurds, with the Druze. Build bridges, help each other by life, not by far high ideologies. It's simple. This is life. That's it.
And it's also the best example to what real coexistence means, because you can't have these things happening so casual, so nonchalant in Syria. You will never have in Syria, first of all, you will never have a Druze woman living in a Muslim city alone. You never have that. My mom is a widow. She's living there alone. You'll never have a story like that where a Druze will invite a Jew to her house, and then they will eat together, and then she will see that he's sad because his girlfriend broke up with him, and then call the girl. Like, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It won't happen in Lebanon. It won't happen in Syria. It won't happen in Jordan. It happens in Israel, with minorities feeling safe and empowered enough to actually be a full member of that community. Like in Israel, if you ask my mom, she doesn't tell you like she feels when she's in the city, I feel Druze. I'm an Israeli. Obviously, she knows she's Druze. Everybody knows she's Druze. You see her. It's very clear that she's Druze. But she identifies in Israel. And that's, I think, what the beauty about the Kurds as well, if you look at the Kurds, every Kurd that I talk to, when you ask him, he says, I'm Kurdish. And then comes, I'm a Kurdish Muslim, I'm Kurdish Sunni, Shia, I'm Kurdish, Christian, I'm an atheist. I think that is the key. But anyway, I want to remind something here, guys, before we finish the show. We have this link here. Let me put it. This link here is a way to support the work of Mr. Khalifa here.
All right.
No, it's important. We have the Mered HaKhalifim. Mered HaKhalifim is not this podcast. If you're watching it through my channel, you're not watching Mered HaKhalifim. You're watching the Ashkar show. If you're coming through Khalifa, you're watching it through Mered HaKhalifim. And I'm going to explain. Mered HaKhalifim is a Hebrew, and correct me if I'm wrong, Khalifa, it's not only a podcast, it's a Hebrew initiative of a podcast on one hand, and also a Telegram group that is actually even bigger than the podcast on the other hand, which it's a community. It brings a lot of people that want to learn about the Middle East together, from the brightest minds and scholars all the way to the average Moshe and Chaim, and they share with each other a lot of knowledge about what's happening in the Middle East. Khalifa does a lot of translation and keep updating a lot of relevant news snippets that he finds from all over the Middle East, that he translates from Lebanon, from Egypt, from that, and he put it there. So it's a very good way to educate yourself. I think some people feel that they graduated Mered HaKhalifim more than they've learned in university about the Middle East and everything in between. So Mered HaKhalifim is also the podcast on YouTube, but also that. So if anyone want to support that initiative for the coming year that is coming right now ahead of us, and help him keep doing the work, as after all, this is becoming his main, he's a shepherd, and he's having to work as a shepherd as well to support his work. But this is the goal, that we're aiming to have a full independency on other means of income, so we can dedicate ourselves completely to the podcast and to the advocacy that we're doing. So if anyone want to do that and help, go and help support Khalifa here.
Khalifa, both of you are doing really incredible work.
Thank you too.
Can I also plug Indigenous Bridges?
Absolutely, yes.
Sure.
If someone can write it for us, or send it to us in the private chat, and we will link it here and we'll put it up. So
if anybody's interested in seeing more about the work that we do, bridging communities, Indigenous communities around the world, we have a website. It doesn't have very much up on it, but indigenousbridges.com. .com is the important part, because some other person took indigenousbridges.org. So it's indigenousbridges.com. And we're also on Instagram. And I'm also on Instagram, Ateret Shmuel. And we talk, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing that it doesn't make it to the public view. We do a lot of bringing people together, actual face-to-face community building events. We're working right now on putting together a Indigenous Women's Voices of the Middle East and North Africa conference that will be online and available and accessible in English for the West to understand. That's coming up. And so, if anybody's interested, indigenousbridges.com is how to get in touch with us.
All right. And here, Ainora the Legend have put also your plug here for your Instagram. And you guys can go and follow her also on Instagram, our guest today. And from there, I'm sure you'll be able to get all the relevant links as well to go and support the work that she's doing. There's a lot of these independent journalism and independent activists. There's not a lot, but there is. And now when we all came together to help defend Israel and our Western values and the minorities in the Middle East, it's easier to find us. We're kind of hubbed around the same area, same place. We are not supported by big Qatari organizations and Turkish money and I don't know what. And I would say, to the shame of our government, Israel, who fell asleep for a very long time on her nose, also not at all by the Israeli government and the initiative, and I'm pretty sure that the new initiative they're going to start next year with it's not going to go to the right places. I'm 99.99999999999999999999999999999% sure that Smotrich and Ben Gvir and whoever is going to be in charge of that is not going to utilize, with all due respect, is not going to utilize this influencer program good.
I mean, we're not going to get our $7,000 checks still.
Yeah.
No. When I say I don't think they're going to utilize it good is because I think they're missing the whole point. They're probably going to spend it on some celebrities and like selected few that are preaching to the choir. And it's nice. It's nice that you have like someone that talks and other Israelis feel good about it and your crowd feel, yay, but it just defeats the purpose. Like if you really want to change the world, you need to start entering the gaming streaming. You need to start entering and building new podcasters to have the future Joe Rogans and to have the future PDPs. You need to start building right now big platforms that will have a voice, that will reach universities, that will reach the feminists, that will reach the streamer kids that are getting big. There's right now a guy named the Burnt Peanut. He's dressed like a peanut. He looks like a peanut. He have more voice than CNN. Like luckily he's more on the normal side, like he's hilarious, but he have more influence around the world in media. But so these guys, they don't know these things. They're gonna just end up giving the money to some.
And the truth is, so many of us that do online advocacy have lost a lot of our work because of what we do. I had to leave my teaching job because it was a conflict of interest, because I was working with the children of some of the biggest anti-Semites in the world. And it became a real issue. And also I no longer can work in many human rights nonprofits because I'm too outspokenly against the genocide of indigenous people here in the Middle East. And that's true for so many other people, especially like the people who were influencers before October 7th, the people who like made their money doing like travel influence or like, brand ambassadors or whatever, who were dropped as soon as they were like openly Jewish. And it was now cool to be an open Nazi again. There really needs to be something in place. We were talking about this on the ride back. Khalifa and I were, when was that? 2 weeks ago? Last week? 2 weeks?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. We were like hanging out, but on my way back to Jerusalem from that, we had this whole conversation about like maybe starting like a nonprofit that actually supports the real like voices, the people who are doing like the work on the ground, that are doing like gaming and streaming and whatever. I sort of have begrudgingly ended up online a little bit. I only do Instagram and Facebook now, but I'm, I ended up in that space just because I couldn't handle the level of stupidity and disinformation that was out there. I was watching people I know parrot absolute lies about the reality I live in. And so I felt like I had no choice but to stand up and say something, that it was an obligation of mine. I don't have time or energy and certainly not money to do it, and neither do most of the other people that do what we do. So I think it's really important that we figure out if the government's not going to do it, if other nonprofits aren't going to do it, that maybe we should step up. Maybe right now the three of us should start a video.
Yeah, no, why not? No, I feel like the government is just gonna try to do it, but like most stuff that the government tries to do, they do it wrong. When it comes to social initiatives like that. By the way, I'm going to share a secret here. I wasn't planning on sharing it before, but I don't think anyone is going to find it anyway. But I've actually started my own gaming streaming channel. I don't know if you know that, Khalifa.
Yeah, I know.
I'm practicing. I didn't tell anyone, so I have between 1 to 2 viewers when I do streaming. And I think one of them is actually myself watching myself. I haven't figured that out. I did it on Kick and on Twitch. But the reason that I'm doing that, except from giving myself an excuse to play a computer game when I have some time to wind up my brain, is actually I want to start practicing, because I believe that this is going to be the next platform that is going to replace podcasts. I believe we don't know it yet. We don't understand it. Like podcasts replace mainstream media, and mainstream media, CNN, Fox News, is going to die with our parents. Once the people that sit in the end of the day with the remote control on the sofa will go, to the next life, CNN, all these things will die with them. No one watches them anymore. Podcasts. I think podcast is going to become the obsolete very soon with the streaming, because people relate now to internet creators like Asmongold and others, like the Burnt Peanut, and they also relate to gaming. There's a whole generation that is growing in that. So I feel like if I want to be a relevant voice in the future and also be like a cool dad that can still play with his kid and with his friends, I don't really need them. I mean, they're going to come and try to play with me, but I just enjoy it for the sake of the game. So I started my own game streaming. I'm not going to tell you the name of it, but whoever finds it is welcome, because I'm still practicing. Like half the streams that I'm doing there is like, okay, guys, I'm going to practice, and I'm working on the sound, and I'm working on how can I talk about a political topic or a psychological topic while I'm playing a game with someone. And I'm still trying to jiggle it out and figure it out like a boomer, but it's fun. It's fun.
Isn't that
Nice.
where that Hassan Parker, that awful guy, came from? Is online?
Yeah,
viewing?
he can, exactly. So you see,
He's now,
he's from
he's now
there.
one of the most
Nick
important
Cole
political moron, evil people there are. Also, somebody here just asked if somebody in the comments just asked if Mossad was setting mosques on fire in Iran. Just so y'all know, Mossad never set any of the mosques on fire in Iran. That was all the Iranian people. And it really is very insulting to the Iranian people. The people keep trying to take agency away from them and like try to credit Israel and America for the uprising that is very much an organic internal uprising that they have been trying to. The Iranian people have been trying to get their country back for nearly 50 years. And to downplay their own actual lived experience is extremely inappropriate and just like not, there's no place for that. These are people who really suffer. The truth of the matter is, I don't know how many people actually know what's going on for real inside of Iran, but the news have to be very conservative about the numbers that they give over and can only use verified information, which is very limited considering that there's been an internet blackout for like a month. And there's very limited people like speaking, able to connect. But the numbers that I'm seeing and the numbers that other humanitarian workers and human rights organizations and other people with connections inside of Iran are seeing, it looks to be between 50 and 80 or 100,000 people that were killed in a week. Okay, wow. That makes it the worst massacre in the history of humanity since Baba Yar in the Holocaust. Okay, there is nothing in that even compares in scope and brutality to the slaughter of the Iranian people, and they took to the streets en masse. It was not the Americans, it was not the Israelis, it was the Iranian people, because they have been suffering so horribly for so long that they were willing to give their lives to try and protect their people and to get their country back. They went barehanded, they went unarmed against their military. Okay? So the fact that anybody would even claim that it was Mossad that was involved in this, despite the fact that, yes, we here in Israel love the Iranians. We want their freedom and safety and rights almost as badly as they do. These are ancient friends of ours, especially, the Jews and the Persian people go back 2,500 years. Cyrus the Great is in our Torah. Like I think everybody in Israel is willing to suffer and be in our bomb shelters for as long as it takes, so long as it frees the Iranian people. But we are not the people that are out there giving our lives and sacrificing our bodies to get back Iran. And so it is really insulting to try and take the agency from the Iranian people themselves.
And we don't need the Mossad to do it from the first place because, we bombed everybody that we wanted, basically, on the 12-day war. We killed their chief of staff one after another. So come on, people. All right.
Also, there were some interesting gas leaks that just happened, though, especially in buildings that didn't have gas mains.
Yeah. All right. Let's call it a show. Mansour Show.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry about all of the internet problems.
No, all good. We're a pleasure having you here, and I wanna take a moment to just say thank you to Ainora for being.
Oh my God, we have a hi from Venezuela. Thumbs up for Venezuela. Amazing. We
Marhaba,
love you
marhaba.
guys, Druze guys in Venezuela. May you be free, and we will visit you and have a prosperous country. All the people basically that are pro-life, stand up. Let's all get together and fight for our right to live. So thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
No,
Amazing.
always a pleasure having. And I want to thank also Ainora here, who's doing a great job moderating and also keeping track of different trolls and different weirdos that are coming from different channels. She's really on top of it. So thank you so much, Ainora. Appreciate. We want to appreciate everybody that came here, guys. Thank you for coming and sticking around for the show. Don't forget a very important message, which is don't do anything stupid and just make good choices. So stay safe. See you next time. And Ateret, it's always a pleasure. And next time to do it when you have a laptop or something, so we can do a better even with the video. And we want to talk about Antifa. We want to talk about maybe Antifa and give it like a proper explanation. What's the different branches of Antifa and what does it stand for? But until then, guys, stay safe and see you next time.
Ma salam, everybody. Bye-bye.